Salve! Welcome back to Weekly Roman History. Last week, military marches by the warlords Marius and Sulla brought the Republic to its knees. Sulla proved that a loyal army can transform an ambitious politician into an absolute ruler, but he left the Republic standing after his retirement, and that's how it will stay in this video. An uneasy restored Republic just waiting for another powerful warlord to come along and knock it down for good. 3 such warlords will be lurking in the background of this video, but this isn't their week yet. Today, as a way of showing you the state of the Republic after Sulla, we're going to follow the career of one influential politician, Marcus Tullius Cicero. Cicero is one of the central figures of study for classicists, though there are far more important figures in Roman history. Cicero is important not as much for his historical impact as for his literary contributions. More of his writing survives than anyone else's in all Roman history. Political speeches, philosophical texts, and personal letters. We know more about Cicero as a person than we know about any other human being between the dawn of time and the Renaissance. So Cicero's lens, for better or worse, is a filter on much of what we know about the late Republic, and Cicero is one of the reasons this period is the best sourced era of Roman history. Here's the roadmap. Cicero, an old-fashioned proponent of the mos maiorum, rises to the consulship in the restored republic Sulla left behind. But the threat of Rome falling back into autocracy haunts him at every turn. A frustrated nobleman named Catiline attempts a coup to kill him, which Cicero defeats. Then another nobleman, Clodius Pulcher, becomes tribune of the plebs and makes it part of his mission to harass Cicero. In the New World order of warlords amassing power and controlling the political landscape, there is no place for Cicero. After Clodius is killed by mob violence, the people burn down the Senate House, a visual cue to the end of an era. The Senate will never again hold true power in Rome. Instead, military might will make right as the warlords take over. Okay, into our story. Cicero is another novus homo. He's actually from Arpinum, the same minor Italian city as Marius. But that's where the similarities end. Where Marius was a military leader, Cicero is a political animal, a denizen of the courtroom and the Senate House, uncomfortable outside the pomerium of Rome. Cicero makes himself quite a reputation as an orator in law cases, and starts to climb the cursus honorum. He wins each office at the earliest possible age. He's something of a prodigy, a once-in-a-generation talent. So when he runs for consul for 63 BCE, he's a heavy favorite, despite his lack of pedigree. Also in the race are 2 men of considerable lineage, Gaius Antonius Hybrida and Lucius Sergius Catilina, who is usually called Catiline in English. They can't bear the idea of losing to this upstart novus homo with no family lineage, so they join forces to try to take him down. But they are unsuccessful. Cicero wins first place, and Antonius barely beats Catiline for second place. The older and more experienced Antonius is the junior consul, and Catiline loses out entirely. Now Cicero didn't make it to the top on his talent alone. He's good, but no one's that good. Cicero is Pompey's man through and through, and he has been helped along by his support. You might remember Pompey as the young butcher to Sulla in the last video. Well, now he's his own warlord with a lot of experience and even more money. There's been a lot of popular unrest lately, and proposals come forward for land reform to get the rioting poor off the streets. But Consul Cicero defeats them all, partially because Cicero is an optimate, so he opposes popular land reform on ideological grounds, and partially because Pompey will be needing that land to reward his soldiers when he comes home. At the end of Cicero's year, he presides over the elections for 62, which turned quite exciting. In this election, another famous name sneaks into the narrative a little early. A young priest named Gaius Julius Caesar gets himself elected Pontifex Maximus. Now, Pontifex Maximus is chief priest, but don't get confused and think about the Pope. Chief priest is primarily a political office, because politics and state religion are very much the same thing. The office of Pontifex Maximus usually goes to a respected former consul as a mark of respect, and once elected, it's a lifetime appointment. But the new Pontifex Maximus, Caesar, has never been consul. He is elected both Pontifex Maximus and praetor for 62, a hilarious mismatch. How did he do it? Well, part of it is his personality. Caesar is one of those unusually magnetic people that everyone just seems to like. He can talk his way into or out of anything. He's a good public speaker, an excellent private charmer, and the sort of person who wins a lot of trust he hasn't earned. But more importantly, He bribed his way into it. He gave out so much money, he bankrupted himself, so he'd better hope that his praetorship makes him a lot of money. Don't worry, it will. Afterward, he becomes propraetor in Spain and extracts more than enough wealth to pay off his debts. Caesar's combination of almost preternatural charm and total lack of moral compass will make him a formidable figure soon. But this isn't his video, so get out of here, Caesar! I'm trying to talk about Cicero. Also in the election for 62, Catiline runs for consul again, after his humiliating loss to Cicero the previous year. Picking up on the unresolved civil unrest of 63, Catiline takes a popularis tactic in this election. He campaigns on a redistribution of land and a cancellation of debts, a proposition that would help the debt-ridden poor quite a lot, and would also give a boost to Catiline himself, who is running himself deep into debt on this campaign. He is popular with the people, but Cicero, always the staunch optimate, makes it clear that he doesn't trust the populist Catiline. When he presides over election day in person, Cicero wears a piece of chest armor under his toga, signaling to the crowd that he fears for his life from Catiline. Cicero's attacks work, and Catiline is defeated again. I've told you that frustrated aristocrats can be dangerous people. Catiline has been kept from the consulship twice by the same novus homo, and the campaigns have financially ruined him. So, if he can't be Cicero, he'll be Sulla. He hatches a plot for an armed uprising to kill Cicero and take control of Rome. The details in the historical record are a little suspect. Our sources for Catiline are Cicero, and a bunch of people very sympathetic to Cicero, so they make Catiline out to be a cartoon supervillain bent on causing havoc and destruction. But it's pretty clear that Catiline was some mixture of an earnest popular reformer and a desperate bankrupted aristocrat whose dignity has been wounded. What mixture he was is something of a mystery, but he certainly had a lot of public support, suggesting that his populism was at least a little sincere. Cicero gets wind of Catiline's plot and plants a spy to pass him information. Once he has enough evidence, Cicero publicly denounces Catiline in the Senate House on December 5th, 63 BCE. The speeches Cicero gives against Catiline are a legendary piece of rhetoric. The opening line is much quoted. Quo usque tandem abutere Catilina patientia nostra. How long, Catiline, will you abuse our patience? Cicero also hits us with his catchphrase, O tempora, O mores, O times, O morals. Cicero groans to the heavens to mourn the fallen morals of his time that could allow such a man as Catiline to gain prominence. This painting, which I have used frequently to illustrate the Senate, is one by Macari, depicting this very moment. Cicero on our left denouncing Catiline, and Catiline sitting tense and alone on our right, because all the other senators have moved away from him on the benches. Catiline flees the city, but some of his co-conspirators in the Senate are arrested. Cicero leads a debate in the Senate as to what should be done with these conspirators. Caesar is foremost of a group of senators urging caution and mercy. There he is again. Get out of here, Caesar. Wait your turn. But a group of optimates urges immediate execution. Leading this group is Marcus Porcius Cato, great-grandson of the Carthago delenda Cato. We call him Cato the Younger. In a tense late-night session, the Senate narrowly votes to execute. Cicero has the conspirators executed immediately, that night, without trial. It's a controversial move. Some call it unconstitutional. Others hail Cicero as a savior of the Republic and call him Pater Patriae, father of the fatherland. After the incident, Cicero certainly thinks he did a great thing. He attempts to get several epic poets to write a narrative poem to commemorate his victory, and when he can't find anyone to do it, he writes it himself. Unfortunately, this is one of Cicero's writings that does not survive to the present day, because all the ancient critics make it clear that Cicero, possibly the greatest speechwriter of all time, is a terrible poet. Catiline retreats to Etruria, where his non-executed conspirators and a private army are waiting for him. The Roman army defeats this army, but Catiline and his co-conspirators insist on fighting to the bitter end, and they die valiantly on the battlefield. So Cicero leaves his first consulship as a controversial hero. The next player in Cicero's story now makes his entrance, a young noble named Publius Clodius Pulcher. Clodius is an alternate spelling of Claudius, and I've talked about members of the Claudius family before. There was Appius Claudius, the plebeian-hating tyrant of the Decemviri, and Appius Claudius Caecus, builder of the Via Appia and the first aqueduct. Our Clodius has no shortage of famous ancestors. To give another example, in the First Punic War, a general named Publius Clodius Pulcher consulted the sacred chickens. He was about to go to battle, and the way the sacred chickens ate told generals whether they would have success or not. On that day, the chickens refused to eat, which was a terrible omen, a no-go on having a battle today. Maybe it was a message from the gods, or maybe it was seasickness. This was the Romans' first naval war, and the chickens were not used to being on boats. But Claudius was furious. He shouted, "If they will not eat, then let them drink," and threw the sacred chickens into the sea. Then he sailed off and lost the battle. The reputation of the Claudius clan is firmly established in the Roman imagination. They are proud aristocrats, they insist on having their own way for better or worse, and they have no patience for anyone beneath their station, whether they be plebeians or sacred chickens. Well, our boy Publius Clodius Pulcher is different. He spells his name Clodius instead of Claudius because it's a little more down-to-earth, less snooty. Clodius serves in the military with typically Claudian flair. He incites a mutiny against his own brother-in-law when he doesn't get his way. But back in Rome, the political landscape is looking a little tricky. Clodius is the youngest brother, and his two older brothers have already been quite successful. It will be hard for yet a third Claudius Pulcher to get onto the cursus honorum in this generation. He's also got a very rash personality, even for a Claudius, and this comes out in a famous scandal. Every year, Rome holds a festival for the Bona Dea, or Good Goddess. It's a highly secretive ceremony, open to women only, and it's held in the Pontifex Maximus's house, and led by his wife. The Pontifex Maximus is, of course, Julius Caesar, who simply refuses to stay out of my video. So Caesar's wife Pompeia is running the Bona Dea festival. Clodius apparently wants to sleep with Pompeia, so in December of 62 he sneaks into the Bona Dea, partially to get close to Pompeia, and partially because it's a place he isn't allowed, and he doesn't like being told what not to do. He dresses as a woman to blend in, and apparently he passes quite well until he speaks. His last name, Pulcher, means handsome or beautiful. It's a family name, and if Cicero is to be believed, he lived up to it. We can't judge for ourselves since no reliable images of Clodius survive. Anyway, he causes a tremendous scandal. It's sacrilege, with cross-dressing, and the suggestion of adultery. I think any public from any time period would eat that right up. Everyone agrees that Pompeia did nothing wrong, but Caesar divorces her anyway because the house of the Pontifex Maximus must be above even suspicion. Ain't that some BS? Clodius goes on trial for sacrilege, and no less than Cicero himself denounces Clodius in court. But Clodius is narrowly acquitted, thanks to some bribery from Crassus, the influential warlord who helped Sulla alongside Pompey. These warlords, don't they know this is the Restored Republic video? Would you get out of here? Crassus is a shrewd criminal, and he sees something in Clodius that he thinks might make him a good ally. Clodius's trial sets up a momentous alliance, Clodius with Crassus, and a momentous rivalry, Clodius against Cicero. And Cicero needs allies right now, not enemies. The divisive politics of the day are leaving him behind. The triumvirate, a powerful alliance of the warlords Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, is starting to dominate the political scene. I'll go into this in more detail in the next video. They invite Cicero to join them, but Cicero is too much of an idealist, a believer in the Republic and the mos maiorum. He won't chase personal power at all costs, like the warlords do. But the party of optimates that forms to oppose the triumvirate is not a natural home for Cicero either. This is a group of old-fashioned aristocrats led by Cato the Younger, who oppose everything the triumvirate does out of principle. Where Cicero wants to compromise and to work with those he opposes, the optimates want to obstruct. Cicero is too principled for the warlords, but too flexible for the optimates. Now Clodius Pulcher forms a plan to gain political power. Before, it was difficult for him to join the cursus honorum through traditional aristocratic means, because he's a youngest son. Now, thanks to the Bona Dea scandal, it's impossible, so he decides to become a popularis, to appeal to the people like the Gracchi did. He is a patrician, of course, so he gets himself adopted by a plebeian family. Caesar and Pompey help. In 58 BCE, Clodius Pulcher, son of one of the oldest branches of the patrician nobility, gets himself elected tribune of the plebs, voice of the common people. And he is extraordinarily good at it. Clodius is a maestro of mob violence, able to bring together enormous crowds and turn them for and against anyone he wants. He is known as the attack dog of the triumvirate. He turns his mobs against anyone who opposes the warlords. Clodius holds on to his crowd's support by delivering on what he promises. He brings back the right to assembly, which the nobility had severely limited, and he makes the public grain distributions completely free food to every citizen. He's the most successful popularis of the Republic, which also means that Cicero and his allies paint him as pure evil. Like Catiline, it's impossible to get a balanced depiction of Clodius from the primary sources. But certainly he was a vindictive person. He passes a law guaranteeing a fair trial for any citizen before the death penalty can be enacted, which is aimed at one person, his personal enemy Cicero. He gets Cicero exiled for having executed Catiline's co-conspirators without trial several years earlier. Now Cicero, who has been on the political outs for a few years, is exiled in shame. In a spectacular show of pettiness, Clodius has Cicero's house demolished and a temple constructed on the plot to the goddess Libertas, liberty, as in the freedom of the common people as contrasted with the power of the optimates. When Cicero is recalled from exile, he will never be able to reclaim the land to rebuild his house, because it is now sacred ground. Cicero makes it back from exile only a year later in 57. His power waxes and wanes, as does Clodius's. At one point, Clodius turns against Pompey, and Caesar has to call a meeting to bring him into line. Before you go sorting these political factions too neatly, Cicero is at this meeting too. Caesar reminds him that he has to play nice or they can get him exiled again. As you can tell from the frequent intrusions of the warlords, the restored republic is a facade for a lot of backroom deals. Cicero is often thought of as the last great figure of the republic, but he is not a man who fits in with his time. And for all his high ideals, he is in the back pocket of the warlords almost as much as Clodius is. What gives Clodius his power is also what undoes him. In January of 52, Clodius is running for praetor and clashing frequently with a friend of Cicero's named Milo. Clodius and Milo's gangs run into each other on the Via Appia, near Bowillae, 10 miles south of Rome. They fight. All the sources call this the Battle of Bowillae and talk of it in military terms, but it's really a street brawl. Clodius is killed. When his body is delivered back to Rome, the people mourn him fiercely. No matter if he acted out of personal interest or genuine concern for the people, Clodius has made the most positive impact on the lives of the common people in living memory, and the people see him as their champion. At his death, the people use their grief to spite the oligarchy. They carry the body of Clodius Pulcher in a funeral procession through the Forum and cremate it using the Curia Hostilia, the Senate House, as his funeral pyre. The Senate House, which has stood for 500 years after being built by King Tullus Hostilius, burns to the ground. It's a strong message to the oligarchy, and they do heed it by making sure Milo is exiled, even after Cicero defends him in court. Cicero goes on to a series of bad political choices. This is all getting way ahead of myself, but as I've made this video about Cicero, you deserve to know how he ends up. He sides with Pompey in the civil war against Caesar, but is spared when Caesar comes to power because Caesar doesn't exterminate his political enemies. Cicero doesn't join the conspiracy to assassinate Julius Caesar, but he does side with the assassins after the fact. He delivers a series of speeches attacking Caesar's former right-hand man, Mark Antony, in scorching terms. So it's no surprise that when proscription lists make a roaring comeback, Cicero winds up on Mark Antony's. This may also have been at the instigation of Antony's wife, Fulvia, who had been married to Clodius Pulcher before his death. Cicero is murdered while fleeing the city, and Antony has Cicero's head and hands nailed to the rostra, the speaker's platform in the Forum. So there are two fitting images to end our depiction of the restored republic. The Senate House a smoldering ruin after being burned to honor a deeply flawed people's champion, and the severed head of the republic's greatest orator, the Pater Patriae, nailed to the same platform from which he addressed the people as consul, thanks to a warlord whose personal prestige could not stand to leave an influential enemy alive. So, to review, Cicero, an old-fashioned proponent of the mos maiorum, rises to the consulship in the restored republic Sulla left behind, but the threat of Rome falling back into autocracy haunts him at every turn. A frustrated nobleman named Catiline attempts a coup to kill him, which Cicero defeats. Then another nobleman, Clodius Pulcher, becomes tribune of the plebs and makes it part of his mission to harass Cicero. In the new world order of warlords amassing power and controlling the political landscape, there is no place for Cicero. After Clodius is killed by mob violence, the people burn down the Senate House, a visual cue to the end of an era. The Senate will never again hold true power in Rome. Instead, military might will make right as the warlords take over. And that's where we go in the next video. The restored republic set up by Sulla was doomed from the start, and next week, a trio of warlords brings it crashing down.